Alright, so the sun just came out and it was raining here in Portland, so I figured I'd do a quick video on changing the fuel lines. Change your fuel lines. It's one thing you'll hear from a lot of air-cooled people, and the reason being is because an air-cooled engine runs a lot hotter than a water-cooled engine. And it's one thing with VWs, bugs, older buses, anything with an air-cooled engine, you want to make sure your fuel lines are serviceable, because spraying hot oil or hot fuel on an air-cooled engine might cause a fire, and typically does. And you'll see films on the internet and pictures of VWs that have burnt down. And one reason is because the fuel lines were old, they're pressurized, and they will squirt fuel on your hot engine and the fumes could catch. Regular engines have fires also, but that's usually from electrical stuff. There is also, I've seen a few fire things that go in your engine compartment, and they supposedly put out the fire if there is one. Those are just kind of silly. This is a non-problem as long as you make sure you have good fuel lines. Every several years, change your fuel line. I do believe it's a 9 millimeter size, and you have to use fuel for fuel injected or fuel line for fuel injected engines. And the reason being is it's reinforced, and it takes the pressure of the fuel system. There is another thing that might happen to your van also, and that is leaking out of the gas tank when you top off the tank, because there are grommets on the top of the tank that seal hoses, and when it gets old, those grommets, they're rubber and they crack, and it's not a big deal. You top up your tank and all of a sudden you look down and there's gas leaking on the ground. Gas up here where the tank is not as dangerous as it leaking back there. Okay, gas leaks are never good, but up here you're not going to really have a fire. Back there you will. All right, so let me take you through the hoses that you need to change. I looked online. One place I used to buy parts from is Bus Depot. I think it's busdepot.com, and they have a kit. Now, I think it was like $100 for the kit, which is a lot of money. Um, when really all you need is clamps and probably about 3 or 4 feet of 9 millimeter pressurized fuel hose. Save yourself some trouble, buy the kit, but you should be able to buy it all separately. So let's see what's entailed in changing the fuel lines. All right, so we're going to start up here where the fuel comes out of the gas tank, which is down here. I've got my carpet already so I can get on the ground here. All right, here's your fuel tank. This is where the gas comes out to go to the engine. Now, this ain't pressurized yet, but use a pressurized 9 millimeter hose. Here is your fuel filter. This is standard stock setup. Now, this hose is a little bit bigger, and I can't remember the size. Again, it's not one that is under pressure, so it's not as important as the ones I'm about to show you. Then you get to here to your fuel pump, and down here to this line. Okay, if you can see this large line, then you get back to the 9 millimeter right there. Now, this hose is plastic, and it's what goes all the way to the back of the van. But the hoses you want to change would be this one, and this one. And of course, in order to do that, in order to change this hose, your tank's gonna kind of have to be as empty as you could probably get it. But again, these aren't the important ones really. If you get a gas leak here, it's not gonna catch really back there, but still, don't play with this kind of stuff. But this hose, and that hose are what you need to change. Those three hoses. All right, so let's move to the back here. Okay, so I took off my air filter and airflow meter so we could get a good look at what we're doing here. All right, now from up front, here's where your fuel line comes. Behind here, can't see it and I'm not going to pull it up, but is another fuel line. You have to change that one. That's an important one. I don't know if you can see it back in there. It's not very big, but that's an important one because you don't want fuel squirting out of there. Come into down here. Here's your 2 fuel injectors, okay? These have hoses on them also. Now, the hoses on the fuel injecting, if you'll notice there's no clamp here. Those are put on from the factory and pressed in. Now, if your hoses are looking shabby, this is a good one to change if they're not looking good, if they're old. What you have to do is you have to slice this with a razor knife, take the fuel injection hose off, and then clamp it right there. Okay, so you'll have 2 clamps on this one. You'll have one here holding it on the injector and one onto there. And again, check and see how old they look. If they look good, if they look new, don't worry about it as much. But just for those, there's a little barb that holds that on there, and trying to get it back is almost impossible because they do this with a machine. So if you need to change that hose, slice it, put a clamp here, put a clamp here. All right, then we go down. As you see, this comes around. This little piece of hose you want to change. Come around here to your cold start valve, which is just another fuel injector. These 2 pieces of hose you want to change, okay? Those 2 there. And as we go around, you'll see there's another piece of hose here. Okay, you got 2 more injectors, which have hoses on them. Then we come over here to the fuel pressure regulator, which is this one right here, that has a hose here, and behind it is another hose that you want to change. All right, so what this is a loop. If you can't tell here, your gas comes in over here, goes to your injectors, goes to your cold start valve, comes back around to these injectors and goes to this pressure regulator, and that's what keeps pressure on the system. Now, it gives you as much gas as it needs, and then the extra gas it sends out the back, and that's where the other hose is, out back here, that we need to change. So this is a loop. We come around, and back here is one more line. You can see that one right there. That's another one that you need to change, and you do it with the gas tank not full. But that one again is not as important as the ones by the engine. So that's how this works. As it's a loop, goes around, fuel comes in that it needs and sends the old fuel back to the tank. Now another thing. All right, these clamps that I use here, these are just the old style heater hose clamps. Okay, and they say that those aren't a good thing to use. Well, if you keep your hose up and it's not bad, then they're fine. The reason they say it's not a good thing to use is because they will cut into the hose if you tighten them too much. These clamps here are what they say to use, and you can buy them, but they're just more expensive. Me, I've always used these old heater hose clamps, old Hillbilly Engineering, and they work fine as long as you don't tighten them too much and cut into the hose. That's what they can do. They have sharp edges, they cut into the hose, so people say it's not a good thing to have. They work fine as long as you keep the maintenance up on this. So anyways, just a quick recap. The hose behind here, fuel injectors, this hose, that hose, that hose, that hose, fuel injector hose, that one, and the one behind here are the most important ones, that if you have a leak and it sprays fuel on your hot engine, your Westie will burn down. And you don't want that. And again, it's only a problem if you don't keep the maintenance up, and these are old. New lines, good serviceable lines, you ain't gonna have any problems. So there's that.